So today I'm going to be talking about one of the most underrated lenses from Leica, in my opinion, from the 2000s. We're going to be talking about the Summarit 50mm f2.5 lens, a lens that it is affordable, a lens that it is sharp, a lens that is somewhat fast, a lens that it is light and portable, and perhaps one of the best street photography 50mm lenses that I own. In this video, I'll tell you everything I know about this lens and also help you decide if perhaps this is one of the lenses that you should add in your collection for under $1,000. Let's go. And before we continue, if you want to see sample of the work with the gear that I review here in the channel, make sure to follow me on social media at Gaston Shutters. All right, so let's talk about this amazing lens. And the first thing that I want to mention is that there are going to be two different versions that are very similar. First of all, it's going to be this one, the f2.5 version, which was released in 2007. Now, at the time of the release, this lens went for around $1,500, and then Leica reintroduced this lens with some minor modifications in 2014. And at that time, the lens was at around $2,000. The differences between both versions are going to be minimal. One is going to be the aperture from f2.5 to f2.4. The optical formula is identical between both versions. Now, the minimal focusing distance on the f2.5 is going to be 0.8 meter versus the f2.4 being 0.7 meter. And also, you're going to see some difference in the filter size of both versions. The f2.5 is going to have a 39mm filter thread, which is going to give this taper shape of this lens, whereas the f2.4 is going to have a 46mm filter thread, and the lens is much more like a little can. Now, there's going to be a little bit of a weight difference as well, very minimal. Once again, this one, the f2.5, weighs at around 180 grams, whereas the f2.4 weighs at around 190. Now, as you can see, guys, there is not a lot of differences. And of course, these lenses are not being made anymore by Leica, but you still can get these versions used, in many places. I got mine from eBay and I paid under $1,000, $980. And this copy is almost like brand new. Now, the f2.4 version with those minimal changes sometimes goes for up to double the price of this lens. And I think that at that point, I'd much rather get maybe a used Summicron than this one. We're gonna talk about that in just a moment, but that's one of the reasons why I went with the f2.5 version. All right, so let's talk a little bit about build quality of this lens. And the first thing that I gotta say is that this lens is built like a tank. Even though this lens was intended to be an affordable option from Leica, this lens doesn't cut any corners. Let's start with the aperture. This aperture is very, very clicky, and it is a thing that I cannot say about some of the Leica lenses that I got in the past. Now, it starts at f2.5, and right away, the immediate click is gonna be f2.8, and from there, you're gonna have half click increments, and then it goes all the way up to f16. Now, when it comes to the focusing performance of this lens, I have to say that it's the utmost fluid and the lens that I enjoy the most focusing with. One of the reasons why I use this lens so much for street photography since I got it versus my 50mm Apo, which it was another lens that I used to use before. Now, the 50mm Apo has an incredible image quality. It's a great lens, but it is a lot heavier. It is more expensive. And when it comes to focusing, I cannot say that my Apo is a smooth focusing lens. Now, this one, no matter in which position you are in your focusing scale, you are gonna have the same performance. So it's smooth throughout the range, and I really enjoy focusing with this lens. All right, so let's discuss performance from this lens, because the first thing that I gotta mention is that when it comes to performance in my book, it is not only about image quality or sharpness. A lens has to actually realize several criteria, and more specifically for street photography, which is what I'm doing the most right now these days. This lens is gonna be small, it's gonna be compact, it's gonna be light, to the point that you barely feel that you have anything attached to the camera. Now, when it comes to image quality, this lens is going to kind of like amaze you when you see the images for the first time. Now, this lens is gonna be very, very sharp. The image is gonna be sharp across the frame, most specifically when you dial this lens at f4 and beyond. And I have even done tests between this lens and my 50mm Summicron Apo, where I dialed both lenses at f4, and to be honest with you, I had a hard time telling the difference. Probably if I would have shot this lens, towards a super bright light source, I would have seen more chromatic aberration with this lens. But in a normal scenario, this lens performs really good. And speaking about chromatic aberration, I think that they are minimal. Flaring is not a problem with this lens, and to the point that I've never had the need to actually put a lens hood in this lens. Now, when it comes to vignetting performance, this lens, as expected, f2.5 is gonna perform really well. At f2.5, there's gonna be some slight vignetting, almost unnoticeable. f2.8 is gonna start clearing up, and by f4 is completely gone, as you can see in this image. When it comes to the look of this lens, I have to say that you are gonna get much more of a modern Summicron type of look. So this lens is not gonna have any of those vintage, character, the glow, the halo, the hazing. None of that stuff is present in this lens, and again, one of the reasons why this lens is so sharp. Now let's talk about the bokeh of this lens, because when it comes to bokeh, f2.5 is gonna give you gray background separation. And to be honest with you, that is one of the things that surprised me about this lens, how creamy the bokeh is. A lot of the times when you're talking about an f2.8 lens, the bokeh can be somewhat a little bit busy, not well defined, but in this case, this bokeh is really smooth and creamy. Really impressed. So why would Leica stop making such a great lens all of a sudden? And in my opinion, there are several theories that I have. One is going to be market positioning and perception of this lens. I don't think the Leica 50mm fanboy really care much for a lens with a 2.5 and a 2.4. Most Leica shooters, they know that they are gonna have to spend money on a lens, and most of the people went straight to the Summicron. I think that that's one of the reasons why. But also, I think that Leica made a lens that it was way too good for its price. And I think that could have been another reason why they decided to end this lens production, because in my opinion, I own both the Summicron Apple and I own this lens. Like I mentioned before, the difference, yes, are there, but they are not abysmal. Again, we're talking about a lens that right now you can get for under $1,000, where a 50mm used lens is gonna run you for around $6,000, $5,500. So why would someone gravitate towards this lens versus a used Summicron, perhaps some of the older versions, for a similar amount of money? And in my opinion, there are gonna be several reasons why you may actually opt for this lens. Number one, if you're looking for a lens that is much more clinical, this lens is going to be superior than, for example, a version 2 of a Summicron 50mm or version 3. Another thing that this lens has, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, you have 6-bit coding in this lens, something that you don't have in older versions of Summicron. And the other one is kind of like simple. This lens is a lot lighter than a Summicron, it's a lot smaller, much more portable. And if you are intending to do street photography and all you want is a sharp lens, easy to carry, in my opinion, this lens is going to be a better option, but again, to each his own. So who is this lens for, and would I recommend this lens? And I think the answer is super simple. Whether you're a professional photographer or someone new to the system, you just happen to buy your brand new Leica M10 or M11 or even used, you are still gonna pay a few thousands of dollars and you don't wanna, spend tons of money on your lens, or you don't have it. This lens is going to be a great combination. For under $1,000 or at around $1,000, this lens is going to deliver a punch. Now, once again, we're talking about an f2.5, which is a somewhat of a fast lens, so it's not that this lens is not gonna perform at night. I've used this lens for night photography, as you can see right here, with no problem. And the other thing is this lens is gonna have a great rendition. The bokeh out of this lens is something that I really enjoy. As you can see in this picture right now in black and white, great bokeh rendition. Even at f2.5, you still can get that great background separation. So whether you're a seasoned photographer or someone brand new to the system, this lens is gonna deliver a punch. And last but not least, would I recommend this lens? And the answer is going to be yes, guys. For under $1,000, I cannot think of a better 50mm from Leica to recommend, or from any of the other brands. Yes, you're gonna have some options from Voigtlander, but if you wanna remain somewhat of a purist with Leica lens, this lens is going to deliver great image quality. So I hope you had enjoyed this review, guys. If you want to follow me on social media and see some of the work done with the gear that I review on this channel, make sure to follow me at Gaston Shutter. Of course, give a like to this video if you had enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel for more content like this one. Until then, I'll see you in the next video. Take care.